Hey family, thanks for tuning in. I'm Ant, this is BT. The purpose of our show is to give a black perspective towards controversial and uncomfortable subjects. Unapologetic is a safe space for us and our viewers to embrace those difficult conversations. BT, how you doing this week, man?
Not bad, not bad. Buzz to see another day. We took a little bit off, but we back at the grind again, and ready to talk about some present things that we think some people need to hear.
Facts. I'm blessed as well. Can't complain. So this week we're going to talk about the N-word. And by the N-word, just for clarity, so everyone's on the same page, we're talking about the derogatory term that was initiated back all the way back in the days of slavery, but now has been conformed to a different term for black people that's used as a term of endearment toward each other, but others may use it and black people take offense to it. So we're talking about that word just so that we're all on the same page.
Correct.
So first thing I want to hit you with is what do you think and or feel when you hear someone other than a black person use the N-word?
Well, there's a few emotions, right? One of the things I normally get hit with, I feel the confusion, right? I just feel like it's knowing that a lot of people in America, right, they know the history behind the word.
Right.
They know what it comes with, and they know what that word brings. Normally, it has a negative connotation to it, right? So no matter the venue, no matter the area, the space, the intention on it, I'm just confused as to why people continue or think that it's right or okay to use that word, right? And I know that there's so many other pressing issues in the U.S. that people would like to have censorship on. People that they don't want, common citizens to speak on in a public forum. Rape and things like that. Those are all uncomfortable subjects and words that usually media and people want to censor.
Right. Usually cringeworthy.
Cringeworthy, right? And it makes your skin crawl. And it's at times it makes my skin crawl, right? When I hear people say those words, I'm just like, it says more about you as a person. It says more about your character when I hear it, because no one in this country doesn't know what that word comes with, and the deep meaning of how derogatory it was when it first started, back in the slave days and even before then. And not to say that the U.S. is the only place that uses it, because other countries are just as equally as malicious with the word. Right. But at the same time, it has baggage behind it, right? And from a persona perspective, you shouldn't want to be known as a person that uses that is not part of that culture. Something that you had hinted to earlier, like that's something that has now become a word that's reclaimed by black people, right? And it's a term of endearment.
Right. So and amended, because we put our own ending on it.
And our own definition on it, right. Those people that are outside of that culture, people that are not black, they don't have that same flight that we had to go through the brutalness of that word. And not to say that it's a past tense thing, that's still a derogatory word to this day. So that word, there's people that still use it, and it hurts. So it's a lot of confusion, because I feel like at this point we're at in 2020. The fact that I'm still hearing people use it, especially with the movement that's going on now about the respect and revitalization of black people and the black culture. The fact that that's still even a thing that we have to discuss is just wild to me. So confusion is probably the biggest thing. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I think confusion is a good word, but for me personally, whether I hear it with the ER or an A end from someone that's outside of our race, typically I hear it with the A end, and it doesn't come with malicious intent being the key word, but my innate reaction is pure anger and just being infuriated. And to the point where a different side of me wants to come out, that to want to physically lash out. But I know that I cannot do that. Because once I do that, not only do I jeopardize myself and everything I have going for myself, but I set my culture back, and then I feed into this negative stigma or stereotype of what some people project of an angry black man, so to speak. So mine is just straight anger and infuriation, and I have to go through a lot of processes really quickly to calm myself down so that I don't react how I innately want to react when I hear that from someone that is not of our race. But speaking to intent, I think it's important for people to know that although it may not be your intent to be malicious because you're singing a rap song, or whatever the case may be, that doesn't make it okay. To your point, there's a history behind this word. Even the A word that was our way as a black community of taking control and taking the power back from a derogatory term that was used against us. So you can't then hijack that and then think that it's okay for you to use that when your ancestors are the ones that gave us the derogatory term, especially if we don't approve of it as a whole, as a community. So I think people need to understand that even though it's not your intent to be harmful or say anything disrespectful, it doesn't matter. We as a community have let everyone know that that's unacceptable. So I think that needs to be understood and thought of before you engage in using that type of word, whether it be with someone that you consider a friend or a rap song that you're singing, etc.
Right. So you touched on intent though, but from a fundamental standpoint, do you think that there's a difference between the N word with an A at the end of it as opposed to ER?
That's a good question. I do think there is a difference. Now, with that being said, I think they're both wrong from anyone that's outside.
And it's a slippery slope,
right? I think they're both wrong for anyone that's outside of that's not black. To be very frank, but when I hear it with an ER, it has a higher level of disdain and maliciousness that is attached to it. Whereas if I hear it with an A, well, I'm still upset, but I don't think there was an intent right there to be malicious. But I'm still upset regardless. But I hear the ER. To me, I feel literally, I feel like I'm about to be attacked, and I get on the defensive. So I do think that there's a difference in it, but neither one is good or okay or acceptable by any level whatsoever. What's your thoughts?
I think, like you said, I think there's tiers to it, right? Neither one are good, and I think I'm gonna touch on it briefly, but I think music has cultivated the word with the A at it to be more socially acceptable. But the ER is an attack, right? There's levels, right? There's the ER that is like, all right, this is a no-no. Like, everybody knows you can't say that. And it's even edgy or uncomfortable and cringy if a black person even says that word. I've been in scenarios where I've heard other black people use it, or I've even used it myself to reuse or recycle jokes or anything like that, right? And it's just, to our own people, it's a cringy word, right? Yeah. That's the top tier. Then you get down to the A, right? Where you balance that fine line of intent that you talked about, right? And I do think there's a difference, but they both come from the same fundamental basis because there was no difference. Back in the day, down south, not everybody used the ER because they didn't pronunciate like that. White slave plantation owners and things like that, they used it with the A because that's just their jargon and that's how they spoke to it, right? So I feel like the A in the ER conversation was a cultivation from white people to try to justify, like, oh, I'm calling you this because it's a term of endearment. But this term of endearment is built from our community. It's not built from outside of our community. So although the intent is there, your culture, non-black culture, cultivated that word in a negative connotation. So you can't take it and reframe the meaning to it. Right? And that's when we get into situations where like, oh, they use it in a song, why can't we use it in this song? Black. Have you ever seen a white rap artist use the word? And you can't say that they're not indulged in the community because they're from their producers, the writers, the record label, you know, that runs them and stuff like that. They're primarily engulfed in black community and black culture, right? You don't see them ripping and running around using that word because they know what the baggage and the package that comes with it, right? So that's just, there is a difference, but they're both wrong.
Right, I agree. And to that point, you can consider this a subgroup, for example's sake. Now you take another subgroup like gay people or Muslims or any other different type of subgroup, and every one of those subgroups, there are words that are acceptable for people within that group to use only.
Correct.
Or even if you take it down to very layman's terms, some things that men can say to men and some things that women can only say to women.
Correct.
And there's this fundamental understanding amongst all the masses of what's acceptable. And you know, if you say that word that a woman once said to her by a man, at that point, you know what type of backlash you're going to receive. And you know if you say it was with malicious intent. So there's understanding in all those other different subgroups as far as what is acceptable for people within that group and what's not acceptable, the same thing not acceptable for people outside that group. So if there's an understanding for that, then there should be understanding for black people as well when it comes to the use of the N-word.
Right.
And people need to understand that these things change. We may put a different ending on it in a year from now, but we have that right to do that. You don't get to conform and adjust to what we choose to use.
Right.
With that being said, so say there are some people out there that are uncomfortable with the word people outside of our race, which is okay. That's awesome. Do you feel that any race is justified in wanting to completely eradicate the N-word, and that includes eradicating it from black people for even using it themselves because it's so cringeworthy to them?
Okay, so eradication, I understand. I understand when black people try to say it, right? Because of, like I mentioned before, the history that it comes with, the baggage, the hurt that it comes with, especially if the black people in general are very in touch with their roots and their history and the slave lineage that comes with it, right? Which is primarily for the most part erased because America have erased a lot of black people's lineage when they brought them over on the slave ships, right? That term, in my opinion, has became such an uplifting part in communities that have not really ever been uplifted, right? So like I said, it's part of the culture, right? That hate, that anger, that word that was used to just gear and dismantle a lot of people from urban or urban culture and urban populations in general, having the ability to take that word and flip it into something that's positive and unifying. Now, it's not a politically correct word. I'm not saying the CNN or NBC or BET for that matter should go out there and have press conferences where they feel comfortable using that as a term of endearment, because that's not that, right? But there are certain things that are comfortable in your own home and in your own personal lives, and jargon that's comfortable in that states that you wouldn't use at work, right?
Professionalism.
It's politically correct, right? And that could be a word such as butt or ass or damn, anything like that. Those words can be used at home. They can't be used at work, right? When you talk about words at home, I know me and my family, family parties, cousins, uncles, and stuff like that, picnics, whatever. We use it sparingly. No, it's not just an N-word fest. We just throwing it out here left and right. But at the same time, it's just like that word has been linked to so many positive gatherings, so many positive uplifting events and things of that nature that really build the culture up, they build the family up, they build the lineage up, and black people in general. So I get it from a black person's perspective where they believe that we shouldn't because of the baggage. But at the same time, it's such a positive thing that has turned into unifying even my N-word, like, it's kind of used as a joke nowadays.
Or even a term of endearment.
Right. But back in like the early 2000s, late 90s, that term alone could have saved the argument or something that's going on in the streets, stuff like that. Now, when we talk about people outside of the race having those discussions, mind your business. I mean that in the nicest way. This word has nothing to do with you anymore. You created it, so I feel go ahead if you feel the entitlement to try to control the words that you created. But at a certain point, when you've used that word to oppress so long and still is a word of oppression, you don't have the ability to take a word that still hurts a whole population of people and try to put labels or terms on it. You don't have that. Now, let's say we were using it as a negative thing in black culture. We say, F that or whatever, Now, if that was a widespread, term that we were using as a negative light, then I can agree with other populations saying, hey, we're all humans, we need to stop doing that. That's not the case. They're trying to make us take something that is used as a term of endearment, something that unifies, something that, builds great memories, comedy, jokes, everything like that, and they're trying to turn it into something that they can control because they can't use it. And I think that's a bigger issue in the country, is that sometimes a lot of non-black people want entitlement to be a part of or use something that they can't because they're not part of that culture. And they get frustrated when they can't. And, as simple as it is, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. I think that's all I got to say, though. What you think?
And I like how you touched on two different parts between black people and just people that are not black.
Right.
So I'm gonna start with the black people. I do think that to the individual person, to the respective person, they have the right to think that it should be eradicated. Everyone, they have that right. They are part of the culture. Their ancestors have suffered through the same thing that we have. They've been subjected to majority the same things that we've been a part of.
Correct. Yep.
With that being said, I think they understand that not everyone is going to agree with that. Yeah. Some people, this is a term of endearment that is going to endure for the duration of their life. Like, that's just a part of the culture, and that's a part that's just going to stick with them. So I think there needs to be understanding, like, hey, it's okay for both sides. It's okay for a black person to think that it should be eradicated because you know the negative history and connotation that it comes with. Right. I totally understand. I respect that. That's your opinion. But understand that there's also another side where some people, this is going to stay because this is a comfort thing for them. This is becoming common day jargon for them to use amongst their peers. Right. Now, to the flip side of it, to people outside of the race, to your point, mind your business. I don't think that you have any right or should even be contemplating if you have the justification to tell someone else not to use a word that you use to oppress them. Once you start getting into that mindset, I feel like you're going straight back to the slavery mindset of trying to control the message of the black people. Mm-hmm. This is a part of the issue when we first started slavery. They wanted to control everything that we do and everything that we said. So once you start trying to do that again, we're recycling the same thing. You have the same mindset. You're trying to control our message and how we convey, how we talk to each other, how we express ourselves. Yep. You don't have that right to do that. Right. You had that. You had the power with that word in a negative connotation, and we took that and we took it into a positive connotation for ourselves. So you lost any type of hearsay, thought, opinion that would be considered. You can think it all you want, but no one's going to take that into actual consideration.
And that goes back to kind of what I said, like with the whole erasing our history thing, right? When we came over, they changed our names, they separated us from our aunts, our grandfathers, they just spread us out across whatever and just labeled us as a slave, right? And they had that power before. They don't. And I don't think that black people are ever going to be in a position again where we're going to allow them to write our own history or create our culture or put monitors or labels or limits on what we want to do as far as building our culture, building our endearments and things of that nature. So 100% agree with you on that. So with that being said, appreciate all the commentary you had towards it. Definitely, and you're always insightful. Hopefully nobody's offended by what I was saying here.
But it's about being uncomfortable. You know?
It is.
That's what it's about.
And then sometimes these things, like I said, you just got to put it out on the table and hope that everybody can listen back to it, though. So, charity of the month. Just wanted to get everybody looped in. We have a new charity of the month for Unapologetic. It is the People's Coalition of Aurora. Great organization. The goal of it is to dismantle some of the economic and social injustice that happens out in the Aurora area and the county surrounding them. One of their biggest things they push for is their the Aurora Coalition's bail fund, which what they try to do is help with the underlying problem that we have with the bond system in Illinois. A lot of people that come from impoverished areas. Which we spoke about with attorney T.J. Parker. It's a difficult situation that always has adverse effects on them in the negative, not just from the arrest, but after the arrest with their job, with their children, and things of that nature. So they try to assist with that. Really proud to have this organization sponsor for this month, and looking forward to getting to work with them. We actually will be putting the link in the description of our YouTube video, and then you guys can follow from there. We'll keep in touch throughout the month.
Great. I couldn't have said it better myself. Big shout out to actually one of our peers, Sharonda, for being a part of this awesome organization and bringing it to our attention and allow us to use our platform to bring more insight to it, because it is something necessary that we need in society to right some of these injustices that have occurred. With that being said, we're going to get right into our now challenge of this week. I think this is a very important and sensitive, delicate subject that we're speaking about. So with that being said, we want to make sure our challenge was up to par with that. So our challenge for this week is be conscientious about not using that word if you're not black, to be very frank with you. The one time you use that word can change someone's perception of you, or it can have an immediate negative impact on your life. And that can be an everlasting impact. You never know who's watching, especially in today's age. So be very conscientious about that. And I would suggest that you not use that word if you are not of black culture. All right. Aside from that, thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate it as always. We will be airing next week. Please like, comment, subscribe, spread love. It's contagious. God bless.
Yes, sir.